Okay, so the next step in our portrait of a person with clay is we are going to start adding the facial features, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, things like that. And for this, you have to think back to what we learned about facial proportion. And you want to remember first that we started in our drawings with the eyes, and we're going to start the same way with our clay heads. And if you remember by thinking back to Joe Student, or you could even look back and check him out on the wall, the eyes are in the middle of your head from top to bottom. So the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to try to find the middle. And if you think about where your seam was when you put your two pinch pots together, it's right about there. And I'm going to take my thumbs and I'm going to press down in to make indentations. That's the first step. So this will end up being the bridge of the nose, and these are the eyes right here. Now, of course, our eyes obviously aren't just hollows. Your eyeballs are in there. So to make eyeballs, you're going to take some of your extra clay that you have and make a small little eyeball by rolling some clay in your hand. And you can check and see. That's a pretty good size, I think. Of course, when I attach this, I have to scratch and add water and put everything together. So I'm not ready to attach that yet. I want to make sure my eyes match in size. That one looks a little too small to me. So I'm going to make this one again. Add a little extra clay. And we'll see if I can get a better size. The eyes are really kind of fun to do because we're going to add eyelids and things like that. That looks too big. So, and we're going to do all that with clay. So we're going to build our eyes up from the hole all the way to the eyelids. Those look about the same size. I'm not too concerned with perfection because humans aren't perfect, so it's okay if I'm doing my best work. It's okay if my egghead here is not perfect. So, thinking back to how we attached our clay, I'm going to scratch here. I'm going to scratch in my eye socket. I'm going to scratch here in my eye socket. And any sort of oopsie scratches you make, you can always use your thumb or finger or a tool, and you can smooth those away. Put a little water in those places, and I'm going to just stick that in there like that, and stick that in there like that. Now before we add the details to our eyeballs, before we add the eyelids to our eyeballs, we're going to add the details because the pupil and the iris, they lay underneath the eyelid, so to make it look real, we have to add those things before we add in the eyelids. To do that, you can take one of your tools. I'm going to use this letter opener. And first, I'm going to make the pupils. If I make them right in the middle of the eye, it'll look like my person is looking straight out. If they make them down somewhere else or up somewhere else, that will change the way my person is looking, just like when we drew our people. I'm going to make my person looking over to the side. So I'm sticking this in, yes, it's gruesome, sticking it in his eye and turning it to make a circle. I'm going to do the same thing over here, sticking this in and turning it to make a circle. Now I'm going to make the iris, or the colored part of the eye. And to do that, I'm just going to make some lines around. The colored part of your eye has some lines, and then I'm going to just make that circle again. And then maybe a little light line around the outside edge. And that looks like the iris. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. Fix up my circle, and then draw the line around the outside. So there. Now I'm ready for the eyelids. To make eyelids, what you're going to do is make a small worm. Just roll your fingers back and forth on your clay. And when I say small, I mean small. That's too big. Because if I were to make that eyelid, it would go all the way over to his ear. That's not good. So I'm going to just take that and divide it in half and make sure my eyelid is looking like a good fit. And now I'm going to just flatten it out a little bit just by tapping my clay. Now for these small parts, I think I want it even a little bit thicker. For the small parts, we don't have to use our scratching method for attaching clay to clay because we're going to be blending this in so seamlessly that we won't need to add any scratch marks. So now I'm going to bring my eyelid over here, and lay it over part of my eyeball. Notice it's not up here, it's over part of my eyeball. Your eyelid covers part of your eyeball. And then I'm going to blend this into my egghead. And over here I have quite a bit of extra, so I'm just going to blend it in, and I also pulled some off with my thumb. Now I'm ready to do the bottom eyelid. I can use this extra piece of worm that I made. I'm going to flatten it out. I'm going to see if it fits. It's looking a little bit short. It wouldn't connect to his other eyelids, the top, so I'm going to make this a little longer. Grab some extra clay. Put it together, make a new worm, flatten it out. That's the nice thing about clay, is it's movable, it's pliable. I want it even a little thicker. So if you make a mistake, you can always just remake whatever you made, mash it up. If you're working with your clay and it gets too dry, you can always add a little drop of water. But be careful not to add too much water, because again, clay is just basically dirt and water mixed together, and so is mud. And if you put too much water in with your clay, instead of clay, you're going to get mud. Okay, I'm just overlapping my clay here to make it a little bit thicker for my bottom eyelid. I'm going to lay it, oh, that clay is too dry, it broke. I'm going to get new clay. Make it a little smaller and a little smaller, there we go. Boop. Check that out. And I'm just going to kind of form it so it makes a little eyelid shape. All right. And then I'm going to pull some off here, pull some off there, and just like the top, I'm going to blend this into my egghead. So you cannot see that I added that shape. And there's my eyeball. To make the brow on this, the top, the eyebrow and the brow bone, that sticks out. We don't want to push too hard in here. You can push a little bit to make it start to look like it's going back in there. But to make the brow bone, we're just going to add clay. Just like we did for the eyeball, for the eyelid. I'm going to sort of measure out here how much I want. And then again, it's just like before. We don't have to use the scratching and slipping and sticking, because we're going to blend this in so it just looks like part of our person. Like that's their brow bone, not their eyebrow, the bone above their eye. So I'm going to take my fingers and blend this into my egghead. It's tricky under here where you're working with the eye. You can use your fingers. If your fingers and your fingernails are small enough, that works to blend it together. And then I'm just going to press this down in. If you're working with clay and it's just getting a little bit sticky, you can always get it, like I said, a drop of water, smooth things out. But you don't want too much water, remember. Later on, we can add some texture to this so that it looks more like there's an eyebrow added. But for now, this works as our brow bone. So I'm going to work on my second eye. You can start working on yours.